Well, hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. And each and every week we have on the show experts, individuals to help us work on our businesses, to offer quality accounting services and get paid what we're worth. It's here that we actually dive into the various things that we need to be doing in our business, ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, onboarding clients, retaining clients, staff training, mental health, and so many more things. And each and every week with the experts' advice and insights, we're able to apply these principles in our business and in our lives. Now, today I'm excited to have on the show someone I've been looking forward to. It's John Hewitt. John actually happens to be the CEO of Loyalty Brands, Inc. He actually leverages his 55 years of experience and expertise in franchising, business management, strategy, and new venture development. He is the founder of 3 successful companies that have collectively opened over 10,000 franchises in the tax preparation and business service industry in the United States and Canada. John is also the author of a best-selling book, I Compete: How My Extraordinary Strategy for Winning Can Be Yours, and is the recipient of multiple awards and honors, including the 2005 Entrepreneur of the Year by International Franchise Association. His mission is to help aspiring entrepreneurs achieve their dream of business ownership and prosperity. He does this to create and grow a synergistic group of franchise businesses and services that work together to provide customer loyalty, repeat business, and financial stability. So, John, welcome to the show.
Roger, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So first of all, just for my guests, give me an idea of what got you into the accounting world. Give me a little bit of background as to what got you into just the idea of taxes and so forth.
When I was in college, I didn't know what I wanted to be, and my major was mathematics because I was really good at math.
Okay.
And I love to tease accountants because I've been named 15 times as in a row as one of the most 100 influential accountants in the country.
Yes.
And by Accounting Today magazine. And I've never taken an accounting course. But while I was in college, my dad tried to buy a franchise from H&R Block in Hamburg, a suburb of Buffalo where we lived. And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we're going to open a company store there. Why don't you have your husband or your son take our tax course and maybe he could work for us? I took the course and I loved it. So that was 55 years ago. One of my many blessings. I knew what I wanted to do when I was 20 years old.
So obviously getting into tax was kind of the start of a very long and successful career. With regards to tax, give us an idea of some of your accomplishments as it relates to what you've done in your business.
Well, okay. I'll say it in 4 or 5 things that are the critical things that I've accomplished. First of all, the 12 years up when I was with Block, I ended with 250 locations as the regional director, one of the top 35 people in Block management. Then I founded Jackson Hewitt, which became a $1 billion company with 6,000 locations. Then I founded Liberty Tax that became a $500 million company. Again, both these are public companies. And then sold both of those. And along the way, I brought in 5,200 franchisees.
Now, one of the things that I was excited to discuss with you is just tax in general. Obviously, one of the things that each of those that you've mentioned so far specializes more in the individual returns, the more service-oriented side of the business. Really, not a lot of strategy per se. What would you say was the help that you brought to the community as it related to tax preparation? You know, there's plenty of tax companies out there, businesses that are offering tax-related services. Why the franchise model?
Yeah, H&R Block started in about 1950 they were 2 brothers with an accounting office. And they finally decided, you know what? They were convinced by their insurance agent, let's focus on tax, because in 1950s, the IRS did all the returns and people would stand for free and people would stand in line. And so their initial strategy was open across the street from the IRS and say tax returns $5 and up. And of course, they propelled it quickly into a Fortune 500 company and I was with them when they grew from 3,000 to 9,000 locations. And then when I competed with Jackson, you always have to have differentiators. When I competed with Jackson Hewitt, my dad and I built the first tax software for an Apple computer. So they were against computerization they had little vision. And they said in their annual report in 1983, people ask us why we don't computerize. We say, why should we? It doesn't save us any money. Customers don't care. We're never going to computerize. So we computerized first and became the second largest tax preparer in the United States. They still have 9,000, and Jackson Hewitt has 6,000.
So one of the things that you're bringing up here is something I'm excited to understand is the evolution of the tax preparation business model. You've clearly seen it evolve over these many years from kind of the paper filings as we once knew to the electronic filings that we're doing now. Where do you see the consumer going as it relates to tax preparation, and where do you see the industry going as it relates to servicing that customer?
I think back then, you're not old enough to remember. When I started in 1969, they didn't even have calculators, let alone computers. We had to pull the hand of an atom machine. So I've seen it evolve from using an atom machine to a calculator to a computer. Laser printers back in the 70s and 80s were $250,000, so they couldn't use laser printing. I mean, it's developed dramatically, and today the computer software is almost generic. That it's sort of like all the airlines use the same ticketing software to book their plane or to book your ticket. It's
Yeah, good analogy.
Same thing. It's sort of the same thing. Computerization has become moot anymore because everyone has excellent software.
Now, as it relates to tax preparation and planning, one of the things that I was excited to also discuss with you is how there's a difference between preparation and planning. There's a lot of advisory services that are now coming on the market where people are bringing to the consumer tax strategies that they can use to legally mitigate their tax liability. Back with what you were doing, it was more the let's say the cookie cutter approach, if I dare say, where you were trying to, through volume, take care of the returns and help individuals just in filing the returns. Now, a lot of firms are getting away from the commoditization of the tax preparation and diving more into the strategies of it all. What are your thoughts as it relates to the difference between tax planning and tax preparation?
Yeah, oftentimes I've been asked, and I've been done thousands of interviews, especially with TV, radio, and newspaper, and they ask me what should you look for in a preparer?
Yeah.
And I said you should look for two things. Number one is someone that digs for deductions. Make sure you haven't missed anything, because too many accountants, they just customer walks in and here's my paperwork and they drop it off, and if the customer didn't know it was deductible, it's not in their paperwork. And
yeah, they don't know.
So I've seen most or many errors. At least a third of the tax returns that are filed are missing information. That it's not an error of commission, it's an error of omission. And then the second part of that is your taxpayer should be giving you advice, what to do in the future. And you should want to talk to your tax preparer when you buy a house, when you get married, when you get a divorce. I mean, as you know, I'm certain that you're somewhat of a tax knowledgeable. I mean, if you get married on December 31st versus January 1st, it may make a difference.
Yeah.
You need to know that. So if you get divorced, married, have a child leaves home to go to the military, you move, you need to talk to your tax advisor. And we just don't do that in the United States.
Well, I was married at the end of the month of December, and then I also had all three of my children in the last half month of the month of December. I'd like to say it was a little bit more strategic than it was, but obviously it was beneficial as it related to tax. Let's get into a little bit of this tax planning and preparation then as it relates to the accounting professional. You're saying that they should be doing these things for the clients, but as you and I both know, many of them are just processing the returns as simply and quickly as possible. What is it that the accounting profession is doing as a disservice to the client, the customer, when we're not actually giving them these strategies and advice and this advice?
Yes, they just don't take the time to understand the customer. And I bet I would dare to say that if I went and interviewed the customers of most accountants, and or let me change that, I'll interview the accountants and say, what are the goals of this customer? Let's go through 10 customers. and you tell me what their goals are, where they want to be 5 years from now. And I would dare to say that not 10%, maybe 20% could tell me what the goals of their customers are. You have to care about the customer and care about what's best for them. And you can't learn about the customer unless you ask them what their future goals are.
I appreciate that because I agree. It's customer service. This is a people business. And considering the fact that we're expecting to see them again and again, year after year, doing their tax preparation, it would behoove us to be familiar with them as individuals as to their personal goals and how we might be able to advise them as it relates to tax strategies if we just knew what they were trying to do personally. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you just a very simplistic view of a tax relationship. And I'd like you to add any other additional insights that you would feel are beneficial as it relates to servicing the client. So here's what I actually teach and espouse to individuals that are doing tax preparation. It's that during the tax season, assuming obviously April 15th, that they're actually taking the time to process the returns. But because of the hurried nature of the tax season, they need to identify individuals that are missing out on these tax saving opportunities that we're identifying or speaking of. And as we do so, we're flagging them to speak with them following the tax season so that we can sit down with them, point out missed opportunities, and address things that they could be doing this year to avoid that same mistake in the next tax filing. Then the next thing I do is in the third quarter is I sit down with my clients with whom I'd like to actually know better and go deeper into the conversation to then discuss tax strategies like you're describing, get into their goals, their intent, what are they doing this year, what life-changing things are happening, and as we can come up with strategies, help advise them on what things they could be doing now to mitigate their tax liability. And then the fourth quarter is to meet with them again to make sure that they in fact did implement those things so that we can in fact take advantage of those strategies come the tax filing. But more importantly, in the fourth quarter is just decide, are you making any last minute decisions this year that, like you mentioned, would be better to be making in December versus in January? Can we make some decisions now before the end of the year that could actually improve our tax liability just simply because of the tax code that we're familiar with as tax preparers? Well, in that second, third, and fourth quarter meetings, I'm doing more than just that first quarter filing. And then when I come into the new tax year, I'm able to more intelligently service my client rather than just file the return. Would you add anything more to that four-step process?
I think what I would add is that is a idealistic process that you described, and I
Thank you.
love the process. But what I would say differently is that
Okay.
not every customer falls into that neat box of willing to meet with you every quarter,
Correct.
and certainly doesn't cover new customers, and it doesn't cover the fact that the most firms or many firms, you're not the guy that's talking to the customers, right? If you want to have if you're an extraordinary service provider like you are, Roger, then that's going to work, and it's going to work for some customers. But I think you're going to run into problems with that when you delegate. When you have, I mean, you can only do X number of customers per year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I built companies with 10,000 offices that did 100 million tax returns. So if you're going to grow exponentially, which some people do, maybe most people do, they're going to have employees, and then they're going to have customers that aren't willing to do that. So I think that yes, in an ideal situation, I would say that in my accounting firms, and one of our new franchise systems is an accounting firm, that I could only get a third of my customers to do that. But yes, I love that, and I have to say that in the United States in my lifetime, and I'm 75 years old, there's been a continual customer services is going down in virtually every field.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I appreciate you pointing out is obviously that's an idealistic way of looking at the business. It's a simplified version. You are right. You're bringing on new clients, and you actually have to work at what I refer to as the SOPs, the standard operating procedures that relate to the delivering of these services. And as it relates to tax software and various things that you can do to manage the workflow, you can systematize a lot of what I was describing so that you can delegate it ultimately, train individuals to offer that same type of quality service. and meet those clients' needs. And as you also mentioned, not all the clients are going to be responsive. They're not going to all come in and meet with you accordingly, nor do all of them need it. There are many clients that are just a simple W-2 and it's just filing their return. So I admit that. But to identify during the tax season those that you can do more with and those that you should be working with that are missing out on opportunities, it allows you to expand your business model. One, because you're going to better service them. They're going to be very pleased because you help them mitigate their tax liability. But three, it brings us to referrals. And you and I both know that a lot of this is built upon referrals. So let's talk about referrals. When you take care of the customer, they're going to be pleased with what you're doing, but you've got to ask for referrals. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I read a book called Guerrilla Marketing for Accountants, and I learned a valuable lesson that really struck home, because most of my preparers over the 55 years, they aren't good at asking for referrals. And so it said in the book that this accounting firm wrote a book on guerrilla marketing just specifically for accountants, and they started by asking all their customers, were they happy, and 95% said yes, of course. And then they asked them, how many of you referred a customer? And only half of them had referred a customer. And that struck home because they weren't asked. They didn't know that they needed customers. And so what we did in my businesses is we call every customer. And we have a very personal person, a couple of days after they've been in, call every customer and ask them how we did. And then we have that person ask for a referral. So we solved that problem, because almost all my service businesses that I've owned, the people that are in the field are embarrassed or just not, or don't care. They're not good at asking for referrals.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed over the years with regards to tax preparation is if you ask for referrals, you end up getting the siblings, the parents, you end up eventually getting the children, you eventually get coworkers, you get neighbors, you get people that people associate with in church and so forth. It's just asking. And as they are pleased with the services you're providing, especially if it's good customer service, they're more than happy to introduce you to their siblings, their parents, their children, and so forth. So it is a referral-based business. It's a people-based business. As much as we want to think it's numbers and tax code, it is a people business. So I like the fact that we're discussing the referral element of it today. Learn the turnkey process for starting and building a successful accounting business. It's in this course that you'll actually experience 4 specific trainings. Part 1, your business plan, everything you need to know to get started. Part 2, how to price your services, the pros and cons of different methods and the best way to price your services that are both profitable and professional. Marketing and selling your services so that you can actually be top of mind, but more importantly, how to actually be seen as a trusted strategic advisor. And last of all, mapping it all out. 5 principles in running a profitable business so that you can be both competent and confident in the services you're providing. Learn now what it is you can be doing to start and build your own successful accounting, bookkeeping, or tax business. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today. Let me go ahead and change gears here because I'm interested from your history and background as you've built so many successful businesses. I'm curious, as a business owner, what insights or mindsets could you share with us that are different as you evolved from being, say, a multi-million-dollar business to a billion-dollar business? What's it like as a business owner to run a company of that size that maybe, as we're working with solopreneurs, people that have practices that are with 5 employees, what are they not aware of that as they grow, they should consider personally as they become different individuals with their companies growing as they may?
Well, I brought in 5,200 franchisees, and so I've helped usher most of them who were never entrepreneurs. And each of them are driven in different ways. So that some are happy making $50,000, $100,000 profit a year.
Yeah.
Some want to be the biggest on the planet, and the rest are in between. And so drive makes a huge difference in where you get to, right? And what I found, Roger, is that everyone, virtually all of them, get complacent once they make all the money they need to get the car they want, the house they want, the pool they want, the education for their children they want, the vacations they want. They just stop. I mean, you cannot motivate them out anymore. And so, first of all, you have to understand where that point is in your life, because well over 90% of the people that I've helped or mentored and I've created 1,000 millionaires, but well over 90% stop. And so, first of all, you have to have drive, and you have to set. One of the things that I did always is set big, hairy, audacious goals.
Love it.
When I started I bought in August of '82. We bought Mel Jackson Tax Service from his widow. 6 locations. 6 locations. We set a goal. H&R Block had 9,000 locations. We set a goal to have 9,001 locations. So we only needed to add 8,995 locations, right? And in my lifetime. And so that's ridiculous. That's crazy. I mean, I walked the tightrope of sanity that I thought I could open 8,995 houses. No one had ever competed nationally successfully with H&R Block, and still no one has, except for John Hewitt, and I've done it twice. And we didn't get to 9,000, but we got to 6,000, $1 billion company, public company. And there's less than 10,000 people have done that in the United States, founded $1 billion company. But I have to say, what I would say, if you want to achieve greatness, you have to have big, hairy, audacious goals.
I love it. Those BHAGs that you're mentioning, I've had those for years. Every year when I meet with my management team, we have a BHAG discussion simply to say, okay, if money weren't an object, if time was an object, what big, hairy, audacious goal would you actually put down? And the brainstorming that we go through that exercise is amazing, because it's limitless. You're not inhibited because of time or money or whatever. It's just basically, what do you want to accomplish? And honestly, we've achieved many of those goals simply because we were bold enough to declare them. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about what you brought up. The other thing about drive, I can relate to that. There's 2 things that I've personally seen that are attributed to the individuals that are successful that I've interacted with, individuals like yourself. And it's, first of all, clarity of vision. They know what they're working towards. They know specifically what they're trying to accomplish, and that's in line with your BHAG. But they're also driven as it relates to their passion. They bring an energy and a contagious thing to the customer, to the employee, that everyone is drawn to. And when you take that clear vision of where you're going, what you're trying to accomplish, couple that with the drive you're explaining, the passion that somebody can bring to the table, they're unstoppable. And it's when they stop having that clarity of vision, it's when they stop having that passion to go the extra mile, that you're right, they become complacent. So I really appreciated how you described that. So here's another question. Being that you are familiar with the franchises, you've worked with privately owned companies, but also public companies, what's a distinction that comes to mind between the two that you would like to point out?
Yeah, especially since, my first public company was in the 90s, before Sarbanes-Oxley, and my second one was in the 21st century after Sarbanes-Oxley. And actually, when I left Jackson Hewitt and started Liberty, top three of us sat down and said, what are we going to do different? And then we did the same thing when we left Liberty, same 3 of us, when we left Liberty and started Loyalty Brands. What are you going to do different? And this time around, we said, we're not going to go public. So it's a real nuisance now to be a public company. We were spending $3.5 million a year just in public company costs, and all the time that we spent. So it's a nuisance, and you have to tell everything, including giving your virtually giving your competitors competitive information. Like, I'm going to open a new branch here. I'm going to open a new. I'm going to go in a new direction. I'm testing this. I'm testing that. It's a nuisance to have to declare every little thing. And Peter Drucker, one of my favorite business authors, said, people with great strengths have great weaknesses. And I have great strengths, and so I have great weaknesses. And one of mine is detail. And Sarbanes-Oxley needs everything detailed out. So the simple thing I would say whether you should be private or public, be private. But if you need liquidity, and you do need that when you have investors, they need a way to cash out. It's certainly the best way to get liquidity.
Very good. I love those perspectives. Excellent insights. The expense and time just being compliant when you're a public company. Very insightful. Here's a question that I'd like to ask on a personal note. Being successful as you are, and presuming that you've worked with business coaches, individuals that have mentored you and so forth, I'm curious, what was it from that that enabled you to become the success you are? And what is maybe one or more things that you learned from those individuals that helped you become who you are?
Well, about 10 years ago, I was on an evangelist television show, and he said, "Who's your mentor? Who's your number one mentor?" And I said, "Jesus." And he said, and I stumped him. He said, "Wow." I mean, because he had been interviewed hundreds of business people, and they never said that. And I thought everyone would say that. No, I have no mentors. I have no guidance. They're in this in the United States, Roger. There are no schools to teach you to be CEO. There's hundreds of MBA schools. MBA is so far different from being a CEO. The only school in this country for CEOs is the school of hard knocks. I've learned it from making all the mistakes. They say people who have most successful have made most mistakes. So I've made more mistakes than almost anyone. But everyone faces adversity. Winners just get up and every time. So if losers stay down on occasion, they got to kill me to stop me. So I've learned this. My school, my training is the school of hard knocks.
No, I appreciate that. And your comment about Jesus Christ, I'm going to actually draw on that because I, like you, have had conversations with individuals as to how the principles that Jesus taught and espoused apply in business. And I've been very fascinated by the conversations I've had with individuals where they speak of how he was motivating, how he was encouraging, and more importantly, how he was able to take those that were his followers and disciples and guide them and engage with them so that they can continue on with the ministry after his departure. So I think that's an excellent way of actually applying a lot of those proven principles in a business and having kind of a Christian based, or let's say a service oriented company. Would you relate to that?
Yeah. Can I give you an example? One
Please.
example is 30 years ago, about 30 years ago, I was sitting in church and the minister said, "Every one of us sins every day." And I said, "Wow, I get that I do, but he's saying he does." And it didn't occur to me until a couple months later, wait, if we're not listening to God 10 commandments, then what human being is following Jackson Hewitt? I was with Jackson Hewitt then. What human being is following Jackson Hewitt's 10 principles? I said, no one's following the principles. And so we have to do a better job of monitoring and improving our compliance with our principles. And so I set about a whole culture committee, and we had tablets at Jackson Hewitt where we had the 10 principles listed. When you blank for the name and a blank for explanation. And when someone met a principle and did a good job, you put their name and checked the box and said why. And someone violated a principle, you wrote their name and checked the box and said why. And it really, people around the office had them taped to their wall. And it really enhanced people following the principles. But again, if you're not going to follow God's commandments, you're not going to follow John Hewitt's commandments.
Yeah, the expectations that we have as leaders of our employees and so forth, that they're going to just listen to and adhere to all of our words and instruction. God's struggling with that. So I don't know how we're going to succeed necessarily, but it is worth the effort because I've learned two principles. One is systems degrade. I do feel that it's just human nature that once you take the emphasis or focus off of something, it's going to then degrade. And so within companies, as you start to implement policies, procedures, different programs, they will in time fade as you move on with other intentions. And you got to circle back and you've got to draw attention to what is still important. And then the other thing is human nature is compliant or complacency. We get very complacent with things in our lives. And so it's very important as leaders that we remind them of the whys we're doing what we do for our customers. And we remind them as to why the things that they're doing in the business are essential to the success of everyone around them. So that's just something I think as a good leader we need to be doing. And obviously, if we can apply some of these Christian principles in our lives, it makes us a little bit easier as a leader to follow. So I think this is an amazing conversation. Get your free copy of the book In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. This is a how-to guide for accounting professionals to work with their clients and actually implement proven processes and systems to ensure that their clients make profit a priority. It is in this book you'll actually learn how to map the business and, in fact, make marketing, accounting, and production a priority within your client's business. You also learn the wisdom pyramid, how to actually take the information you're providing to your clients and effectively use it so that they can make more informed business decisions. This book is designed to help you communicate more effectively with your clients and, in fact, have them see you as their profit and growth expert. Get your free copy now of the ebook today, In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. Here's something that I'd like to go into that I know you're passionate about now, and it's about having fun and improving lives. You're clearly in a position where you can give back and take all of the lessons, experiences you've had, and help us who are still on our journey kind of learn from you and one another. What do you mean when you're saying you're focused on having fun and improving lives? What does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, let me say that's our mission statement, and I allow anyone to steal it. I think we said it all in 4 words. And most mission statements are dozens of words. And I ask people at companies, well, what's your mission statement? They can't even cite their mission statement. Every one of my employees know it. But it's this simple, Roger, that when you go to work on Monday morning, if you're not looking forward to it, you're going to the wrong place. Life is too short. You have to have fun. And so I created Thank God It's Monday. If you're at a place that Thank God It's Friday, you're in the wrong place. And improving lives, I heard Denzel Washington, the famous actor, he was doing a commencement speech recently. And the final thing he said is, and it just shocked me, he said, the people that help others are the most selfish people in the world. And I said, what? And he said, because they're so happy. There's nothing more rewarding than helping people. When I was a kid, I thought I knew I was going to make millions of dollars. I thought I'd just retire and relax, but I don't know what I'd do. There's nothing more rewarding than changing lives. And you know what? When you change and improve lives, they pay it forward. So the tens of thousands of people that I've improved their lives, they're changing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands more people and improving their lives. I'm making a difference in this world by committed to improve lives. So I'm never going to retire. They got to kill me to stop me.
I love it. I appreciate you bringing up the phrase pay it forward. My son and I were just discussing that movie recently. And you're right. When you're blessed and you can see with gratitude the things that are in your life, it's important to then share that same feeling with others. A smile costs you nothing. To simply say hello and make eye contact with someone and acknowledge them as a person, as a child of God, and more importantly, as someone of importance, that's huge because some people just don't have that self-confidence. And for you to be able to instill that in them with a friendly hello and acknowledgement, that's a huge thing. And when you're able to approach life with fun and the intent of helping others, you can make a world of difference with the people around you. And I think that just elevates everyone and at the same time makes you happy, as you pointed out. So I'm going to ask, what are you grateful for?
When I was in second grade, I was up until I was in second grade, kindergarten, first and second, I was at a 3-story school. And so they didn't have any disabled children. And when I went to third grade, I switched schools and it was all one level. And so the bus pulled up with disabled children. And I said to myself, wow, I could be like that. I am so blessed that I'm healthy. And I try to convince, I have 9 children and I can't even convince them that that being alive and healthy in the United States is you're in the 1 or 2% most bless people on the planet. And even my own children don't get it. And my 11 grandchildren, I can't convince them. But every day I go to bed happy. I wake up happy. I'm aggravated a lot during the day, but I never have a bad day because believing in God starts with gratitude. And I am the most grateful person on the planet.
Amen. I absolutely love that. So, having brought up your children, what do you hope that they're learning as they witness and observe your successes in your life? What are you hoping they're taking from you as you parent them?
Someone asked me 30 years ago or 35 years ago, they said, one of my employees, and I've only been asked this once. I'm not Dr. Phil, right? But I've only been asked this once in my life. And one of my employees said to me, she was about to have her first child. She said, "What advice would you give to me as a parent?" And I had to think about that. No one had ever asked me about that. And so it took me a couple of days to come up with it. And I said, I would recommend two things. Two things. You introduce them to God and you set a good example.
Excellent advice.
So that's what I do with my children.
I'm going to add mine. Something that I've tried to instill in the people I interact with, especially my children, is they are enough. They are enough. And I don't ever want them to question whether or not they're deserving of my love, more importantly, of God's love. So I agree with that. And that's wonderful advice that you've shared with us. So thank you. Here's a very simple question. So coming to the conversation today, what did you expect me to ask that I didn't ask?
I do about a podcast a day.
Yeah.
So I have no expectations. I can tell you the number one question I get asked.
What's that?
Is you've been so successful. I mean, you've built 2 chains, 10,000 offices. You're the only person that's built 2 of the top 100 retail chains in the country. What is there one thing, if one most important thing to be successful? And I'll say this, that do you want to know the answer?
Of course.
Okay. So I'll give you the answer, but for the first 5,000 times I was asked, I said the same thing. And then about 2 months ago, I said, wait, there's like a 10 things you can't just narrow down to one thing. And so I do a webinar that helps mentoring every week. And it's on my website. And on one of the editions about 2 months ago, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I love top 10 lists. And that came from the Bible, right? The 10 Commandments. So I have top 10. I'm going to give the top 10 most important things for being successful. And then I sat and I thought I could only come up with 5 or 6. Next day in 5 minutes, I sat down and jotted 10 things. And
Good.
Then before the presentation, I thought of 2 more. So I've top 12 things, but I call it top 10 because in the Big Ten football league and in college football, they have 14 teams. So I can have top 10, even though it's 12. But I have 12 things that took me an hour to explain. So I can't do that now, obviously. But I will say the most important thing in success in anything, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a business, whether it's in school, it's perseverance.
That is good advice. Perseverance, because too many people quit too early, too soon. That perseverance, being committed again to that vision, having that drive that you mentioned earlier. Very, very good. Well, here's what I'm going to do. John, I'm going to take a moment here and kind of summarize what it is we've been discussing. And then I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. Before I begin my summary, I'd like to actually share with the listeners that John's been very kind to actually provide for us in the episode description a free copy of his book. Yeah, you can go to Amazon and purchase it, but if you'd like to, you can actually go to the episode description and get a free copy of I Compete. With regards to this book, I'd just like to point out that it is something that he's very happy with. I Compete is how my extraordinary strategy for winning can be yours. And I really encourage everyone to go to the episode description and get it. It's at loyaltybrands.com, and where you're able to get that for free is something you want to actually take advantage of. I also want to point out that in the episode description, you'll find information related to becoming a professional tax preparer. As a school, Universal Accounting Center helps individuals individuals to get the skills, the training that they need to become professional tax preparers and offer quality tax preparation and planning services. In doing so, you can become very proficient in your skills and services and become someone like John as offering great customer service and taking care of your clients as it relates to their tax needs. Now, with that being said, as a summary, I really enjoyed our conversation. Obviously, I was excited for this, but one of the things that really stood out to me is, first of all, his experience with math, just knowing he was good with numbers, not really realizing where that was going to take him. And then he took his tax course and fell in love with the tax preparation. Clearly, that was years ago, but he was able to see from 1969, our using basically these old devices to do the calculations, to then calculators, then evolving into software, and being forward thinking enough to actually see that software could make a difference. And clearly, that's where the profession is today. One of the things that also I thought was helpful is this discussion we had about customer service, realizing that even as tax preparers, we need to be a little bit more conscientious of our clients, paying attention to their opportunities as it relates to tax mitigation, just things that we can do to take care of them and point out things that they can and should be doing to minimize their tax liability. But then the distinction between tax planning and preparation, recognizing that there is a demand, a need, an opportunity for us to actually get into the strategies of it all and help our clients really become a little bit more involved in their tax planning. Now, as it relates to the services, we talked about how we can best service them, things we can do after the tax season in the second, third, and fourth quarters of the year to better position the individuals that we're working with to really get prepared for the next tax filing. And then in doing so, save their monies. And then the other part that I thought was helpful was when we were talking about drive. Obviously, John was mentioning that to be successful, those that he's noticed and recognized are driven. And it's that drive that allows us to be successful. I added to that the idea of clarity of purpose and vision, and then bringing passion to the table. All of these things were, I think, very helpful to me as a reminder of things I can be doing to be a little bit more successful in the things I'm doing. But as he pointed out, so many people who have so much more potential become complacent in what they're doing because they lack that drive. So I really appreciated that part of the conversation. When I asked about mentoring and guides, I appreciated him bringing up Jesus Christ. So many of us are very much committed to the faith, and in doing so, find inspiration in the Gospels. And John was unabashed in being able to say that that's where he finds a lot of his inspiration, and I appreciated him saying that. I think there are a number of great principles there for us to be keen to and aware of as we run our businesses. And then as it relates to being successful, one of the things that we talked about was gratitude. As successful as John is, he's obviously having fun and improving lives, and more importantly, doing so with a very open mindset. His attitude of gratitude, I think, is something to be very appreciative of, and I'm hoping that it's something that we can pause and take a moment to really recognize the blessings in our lives and see how blessed we truly are, wherever you may be. Just at least take a moment and recognize where it is that you can at least see God's hand. So all that being said, I really appreciated our conversation. I thought it was very, very fruitful, and I got a few takeaways from this conversation. John, what would you like to add as a closing thought?
Roger, I agree. It's been fun, and you did a great job. But I'd say that the secret of life is find something you love to do, work hard, persevere. Life's too short. You got to enjoy it while you can. And there's nothing worthwhile that doesn't require hard work. And perseverance, again, is the most important attribute of success.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Well, everyone, having listened to this, I hope you have some great takeaways. Appreciate your time. What I'd like to, first of all, point out is we do have this and other episodes that you can binge listen. They're at universalaccounting.com. There you can find information regarding this podcast and past episodes where you can actually hear various topics that are related to your current situation. So I encourage you to go there and in the navigation, find the podcast highlights where you can actually binge listen various playlists that we've compiled of topics that are related to marketing, selling, pricing, mental health, and so many other things. As it relates to today, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, encourage you to do so. Love you to set the notifications so that each and every week when we release a new episode, you get notified. We'd love to have you listen in each week as we have the guests on who are experts in their own right, helping us build the premier accounting firms in our area. As it relates to GrowCon, I'd like to invite you to our GrowCon annual conference. This is for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's here from the stage that we hear the experts give us the advice, the instructions, the things we need to be considering considering as we're building our businesses. I invite you to come and hear from them, and also visit with your peers, interact with those individuals that, like you, are actually building their businesses. Find out what you can do to build some friendships, collaborate, and better take care of your clients. And more importantly, just find the inspiration you need to grow your business. And then as it relates to Universal Accounting, you can meet the staff here. Obviously, those individuals that are committed to helping you be successful, basically allowing you to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So with all those things, I invite you to check out more at universalaccountingschool.com. These principles that we've discussed and so many others, you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to discuss them further with you, how it is that you can work on your business, whether it's training your staff, visiting with us as it relates to services you're providing, and so much more. Check out universalaccountingschool.com, and more importantly, give us a phone call, 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care, be safe out there, and have a great day.